In the outskirts of England, you can find the Holmes family house. Many years ago, the father passed away, and the older sons left shortly after. Nowadays, the only residents are the mother, Eudora, the youngest daughter, Enola, and a housekeeper. Eudora, a word game enthusiast, named Enola by spelling, alone backward, hoping she would thrive independently. Enola has never ventured beyond the woods surrounding their house, nor has she visited a city or town. However, Eudora provided her with a comprehensive education, covering science, literature, sports, and even self-defense. The bond between mother and daughter is strong, but Eudora harbors some secrets, as Enola has discovered her having clandestine meetings with other women in the house. On Enola's 16th birthday, she awakens to find her mother gone, leaving behind a mysterious gift, a box containing a book about the language of flowers, a decoder, and hand-painted cards. Enola decides to head to the train station to pick up her brothers, Mycroft and Sherlock, with hopes of uncovering the truth. The brothers initially fail to recognize her, but after introductions, things become awkward. Mycroft is critical of the house's condition and, more importantly, Enola's unconventional behavior and manners. Sherlock, while inspecting their mother's room, concludes that Eudora left on her own and had no intention of returning. Later, Enola overhears her brothers discussing the house's ownership. It turns out that Mycroft has owned it since their father's death, and Eudora had only asked for it to raise Enola for 16 years. Sherlock hadn't seen Mycroft in months and was only there because of the mystery. In Mycroft's view, the right course of action is to send Enola to a boarding school to mold her into a proper lady. The next day, Miss Harrison arrives, a stern teacher hired by Mycroft to transform Enola. Enola finds Miss Harrison unbearable, as she attempts to reshape her entire personality. Enola's strong response to Harrison's condescension results in a physical confrontation when Harrison slaps her. Enola pleads with Mycroft for leniency, but he remains steadfast in his decision. Desperate for help, Enola turns to Sherlock, but he claims his hands are tied by the law, as she is Mycroft's ward. That evening, Enola re-examines her gift and uncovers a hidden message left by her mother. Since Eudora enjoyed word games, Enola rearranges the letters and discovers a painting by her mother. Hidden behind the canvas, she finds an envelope with money and another painted card. Taking this as a sign to take her mission seriously, Enola escapes the house in the middle of the night, wearing Sherlock's old clothes. Meanwhile, Sherlock investigates the house for clues, believing that his sister's disappearance is part of a larger mystery. The housekeeper confronts him for thinking similarly to how Enola did, and she mentions that Enola left some money before departing. She implores Sherlock not to abandon his sister, as Mycroft is contacting the police to locate her. Returning to the teenagers, Enola and Tewkesbury decide to travel to London together. They camp for the night, and Tewkesbury's foraging skills come in handy as he finds edible plants. As they bond over their unconventional families and shared fears of living within societal constraints, Enola cuts Tewkesbury's hair to make him less recognizable. The following morning, they hitch a ride to London and part ways. Enola is overwhelmed by the bustling city, especially with ongoing protests both for and against the reform bill that would grant women the right to vote. Additionally, posters with Tewkesbury's face offer a reward for his capture. Enola decides that her first step is to acquire a disguise, surmising that Mycroft may have described her to the authorities. Simultaneously, Sherlock declines the case involving Tewkesbury's disappearance, as he is more focused on finding his mother and sister. Ignoring Mycroft's objections, Sherlock stumbles upon a clue in the news about two boys jumping off a train. Having acquired proper lady attire and rented a room for her stay in London, Enola starts working on the next step of her plan. She publishes cryptic messages and personal advertisements in the newspaper and decides to visit the only address she has seen Eudora write to, a tea house. While at the tea house, Enola hears peculiar sounds coming from the first floor and investigates, leading her to discover Edith's Jiu-Jitsu Academy for women. Although Enola doesn't remember Edith from her childhood, she realizes that Edith is one of the women who attended Eudora's secret meetings. Edith is reluctant to share information about Eudoria's activities, prompting Enola to attempt to force it out of her. However, she fails to execute a particular move, and Edith easily overpowers her. Before leaving, Enola notices a box of dynamite bearing a logo that matches the one from the secret meetings. Recalling some strange words she heard during those meetings, Enola rearranges the letters to obtain an address, which she promptly visits. The door at this address is sealed with a purple ribbon, mirroring the attire worn by the women at the meetings. Enola sneaks inside through a window and discovers a laboratory, pamphlets, and crates filled with explosives. This discovery leads her to realize that Eudoria is the leader of a radical suffragette group. Now aware that Linthorn is in London, Enola feels a sense of responsibility to warn Tewkesbury. Disguised as a widow, she travels to his family's estate and falsely claims to be Sherlock's assistant. Tewkesbury's mother nearly believes her, but Inspector Lestrade from Scotland Yard, a close friend of Sherlock's, exposes her lie. An argument ensues, leading Tewkesbury's mother to kick them out. Outside, Enola inquires with the gardener about Tewkesbury's favorite places and pays him to exchange clothes. Meanwhile, Sherlock manages to locate Edith thanks to some letters hidden in her chimney. Edith confirms that Enola is safe but refuses to provide further information, pointing out Sherlock's disinterest in changing a world that benefits him. Mycroft also has a meeting of his own with Lestrade, who confirms that the girl he saw was his sister. Mycroft promises a substantial reward if Lestrade apprehends her. Back to Enola, she ventures into the forest and discovers Tewkesbury's treehouse. Although he left false clues about his whereabouts to confuse his family, Enola finds a genuine clue in a book indicating his actual location. However, their investigation is interrupted by Tewkesbury's grandmother, the Dowager. She guides Enola out of the forest and discusses her pride in safeguarding a portion of England's heritage and ideals. The Dowager labels Enola New Thinker and notes that her son and grandson share the same trait. Next, Enola goes to Covent Garden, where she encounters Tewkesbury selling flowers. She warns him about Linthorn and takes him with her. Unbeknownst to them, posters with Enola's face now line the streets, offering a reward for her capture. Upon reaching their hotel, Enola reveals to Tewkesbury that she found clues in the forest indicating that his father's death was not an accident but murder, and now they aim to kill the son for greedy reasons. Their conversation is interrupted by Lestrade, who arrives after the seamstress who sold Enola her dress informs him in exchange for the reward. Enola retaliates by throwing a teapot at Lestrade and takes Tewkesbury to her room. They try to barricade the door with a chest, but it won't hold for long. Enola decides to sacrifice herself and instructs Tewkesbury to escape through the window, believing that his death is far worse than her being sent to a boarding school. Tewkesbury complies and manages to escape safely, while Enola is captured and taken to Mycroft. Enola begins to discern a clue in the newspaper but is interrupted by a delivery from Mycroft, a massive, heavy basket. When she opens it, she finds Tewkesbury inside, who has come to rescue her. Enola hides in the basket, and Tewkesbury carries her out of the room. When Harrison discovers the basket in her office later, she only finds a humorous drawing left by Enola. In reality, Enola has escaped through the window and reunited with Tewkesbury. They escape in Harrison's car, supposedly heading back to London, but Enola decides to take a risk and confront Tewkesbury's family, believing that his uncle is the true culprit behind the scheme to eliminate Tewkesbury. As night falls, they arrive at the family mansion, finding no one around, indicating they were expected. Suddenly, Linthorn appears and opens fire with a rifle, forcing the duo to take cover behind statues. Linthorn approaches, and Enola attacks him, but he knocks her out. Tewkesbury tries to intervene but also fails. Linthorn prepares to asphyxiate Tewkesbury, but Enola regains consciousness and successfully executes the corkscrew move, causing Linthorn to fall and fatally strike his head against a banister, uttering that he works for England before dying. At that moment, the true culprit, the Dowager, arrives. She admits to killing her son and reveals her intention to eliminate her grandson to preserve the country's traditions. The dowager shoots Tewkesbury, and Enola mourns his apparent death. However, Tewkesbury is unharmed, having donned a piece of armor from a statue during the struggle. The dowager surrenders as they are surrounded. The next day, Sherlock visits Inspector Lestrade to inform him that he has identified the dowager as the culprit, deducing this from clues in the newspapers. Lestrade informs him that Enola has already solved the case, making Sherlock proud. Meanwhile, Tewkesbury and his mother offer Enola the chance to stay with them, but she declines, determined to continue her search for Eudora. However, she accepts the reward money. Before parting, Enola and Tewkesbury pledge to meet again in the future. Enola buys a newspaper and discovers a cryptic message signed as Mother, which she suspects is a trap set by Sherlock. Nevertheless, she goes to the meeting spot, maintaining a safe distance as she observes her two brothers waiting. Mycroft, in a sour mood due to Tewkesbury's support for the reform, soon gives up and agrees to Sherlock's proposal to make Enola his ward before leaving. On their way out, Sherlock notices Dash on a nearby statue, confirming that his sister had been there all along. Upon returning to her new hotel, Enola finds a remarkable surprise in her room. Eudora is waiting for her. They embrace, and Eudora explains that she left not because she didn't care but to work towards creating a better world for her daughter. Eudora intends to continue her fight but expresses pride in all that Enola has accomplished. Enola is content with this revelation, as she has now discovered her own purpose. Much like her mother and brothers, she will become a detective and a finder of lost souls.